Shalom Aleichem Rabbatai, an exciting day in the Mishnah Yomi. We're beginning the fourth parak of Kilayim about Kilai haKerem. haKerem is a vineyard, and it's a little bit different from what we've covered before. Similar concept, we don't plant other species in a vineyard. There's a machloket if it's asur deraisa, forbidden from the Torah, to plant one other seed along with a grape seed, or if you need two other seeds, like Kilai, plural, plus kerem, which is how the Bavli rules them. The Rambam says a person gets malchus for planting two seeds along with a grape seed at the same time. But even one seed combined with a grape seed would be asur deraita, according to the Rambam. And a lot of what we're going to see is things that look like Kilai haKerem would be asur derabanan. If it looks like Kilayim and it smells like Kilayim and it tastes like Kilayim, it's at least asur derabanan. Might not be asur deraita, but the Kilai haKerem is very excited. We got into it at the end of yesterday. We talked about how vegetables were a bit makel. You need a 6 tefachim gap, but then Rabbi Yossi was machmir by the gourds that they needed 4 tefachim, 4 amot, and the other sages said, oh, well, you're being machmir like Kilai haKerem, you're being machmir like vines. And he says, yeah, gourds are a problem. These Greek gourds get all over everything. As you saw there already, the kerem, the vineyard, needs 4 amot of spacing in certain occasions, and we're going to see why in the fourth parak. So the first Mishnah in the fourth parak starts karachat haKerem, the bald spot of the kerem. Now this word karachat should sound familiar, Rabbosai, because we talked about it in Tazria. This word appears in Tazria, in Vayikra, the 13th parak, pasuk mem, the 40th pasuk. V'ish ki yimaret rosho kereach hu tahorhu. A man who goes bald on the back of his head, he's a kereach. That's the same word, kereach karachathu, tahorhu. And that's not a tzarat, that's not an issue, it's a baldness. They talk about if the tzarat appears in the bald spot, that's another issue. And then the next pasuk is impat panav yimaret rosho gibeach hu tahorhu. That's a gibeach. That's a baldness in the front of the head. So just like the Eskimos have more than one word for different types of snow, Baruch Hashem, the Torah has different words for different kinds of baldness, because whatever a society has a lot of, they find a lot of words for as well. So we have karachat and gabachat, kareach and gibeach, and here we're studying karachat haKerem, the bald spot of the kerem. So just like the bald spot on a man, it has hair surrounding it, God willing. It's on the top of his head, the back of his head. Here too, this is a bald spot of the vineyard that has vineyard around it. So how big does it have to be to plant something else in that bald spot of the vineyard, of the kerem, without having it look like Kilayim? Beit Shammai omrim 24 amot. You need 24 amot wide in that gap, in that bald spot. And the reason, the Mefarshim explain, is because he requires to have a 16 amma field. That's his definition of a chashuv field, planting wheat or planting a vegetable or something else. And you need 4 amot on either side for the workspace. The gap of the kerem is required to be 4 amot. So you need a 24 amot bald spot, according to Beit Shammai, a 4 amma gap for the work area, the clearing, so you know it's not mixed, then a 16 amma farmable area, and then another 4 amma gap. Beit Hillel omrim 16 amma. He says you only need 16 amma. You'd have a 4 amma gap, but then your other species you're planting and you're growing is only required to be 8 amma across. That's still considered a chashuv area. Less than that, it's not chashuv, and it looks like instead of you're growing a patch of something else, it sort of looks like you've got a little bit of other things mixed in with your kerem, instead of you're having a chashuv parcel of something else inside the bald spot of your kerem. Machol haKerem, the machol of the kerem, this means the border of the kerem, and the mocholah means a dance, because they would dance around in a circle. We do this at weddings nowadays. People join hands and they go in circles. That's a mocholah, it's a dance. There is possibly, it is cognate to mechila, forgiveness. Mechila is apparently related to the word yachel, like lo yachel dvaro, and yachel is like to empty out or profane. A halil is a flute, it's a hollow instrument, and mechila is like a circle. You're dancing in a circle, it's like a circular perimeter around the vineyard. So these words are all cognate. So Beit Shammai omrim 16 amma. So if you have a 16 amma gap, according to Beit Shammai, around the perimeter of your vineyard, between the vines and the fence, you could plant something else in the middle there. you would have a 4 amma gap between the vines to your other species, and you have 8 amma across of the other species. That's enough to be chashuv. Then another 4 amma gap up to the gather, up to the fence. Beit Hillel omrim 12 amma. Beit Hillel says you only need 12 amma to be able to plant another species in haKerem in the border area around the vineyard. haKerem. So the Mishnah explains the language here. What is the bald spot of a vineyard? Kerem shachar v'msayu. It's a vineyard that dried up or was desolate from the middle. From the middle, like we said, the bald spot on the top, on the back of a man's head is still surrounded by hair. If there's not 16 amma, you should not bring seeds to there. That's according to Beis Hillel. If you had 16 amma across in that area, you need to give it an empty area of the avoda. This is the 4 amma gap we're talking about, and the 4 amma is enough to bring in an ox and a cart, and enough to get your workers in there to plow and hoe and take care of the vines, things like that. But it also serves as your gap between the vines and the other species. So at the motar, and you can see the rest. Mishnah Beit. Ezehu mahol haKerem. What is the perimeter area around the vineyard? Bein kerem legader. This is in between the vines themselves and the fence, as I mentioned in the last Mishnah. Im ein sham 12 amma. If there is not 12 amma there, you can't plant anything else in that area. It's too small to have the 4 amma gap and a significant area of a different species, another 4 amma gap. If you have 12 amma between the vines and the fence or whatever the border of your vineyard is, notnin lo avodato v'zorea et motor. You give it kedei avoda, the workspace, which is the 4 amma gap, and you can seed in the rest, and then you'd really have another 4 amma gap, and then up to the fence. And that's how you can prevent your other species from looking like it's mixed up with your vines. Shkoyach Rabosai on beginning the Kilai haKerem.